Greetings, YouTube. Today I thought I'd talk about love, compassion, and anxiety. I'm not sure in which order. As I've said in the past, I suffer from anxiety and depression, and apparently also I'm in the dark. And I've gotten a really good handle on my depression. I can't say it's gone. I don't think it'll ever go away. But it is very much no longer something that haunts me. I no longer find myself following into the spirals downward that is so hard to get out of. It's like being dragged into a riptide. But I'm still working on anxiety. I've always found it interesting how anxiety and depression move hand in hand so easily. As I've said in the past, I was raised in a oppressively unpleasant and abusive household by a drunk and a passive-aggressive mother. And masking my emotional states became a survival instinct. From like 3 years old, I figured out that I couldn't show who and what I was. I couldn't show my true emotional state, because to do so would at best get me yelled at and told I was stupid, and at worst would get me hit. So I learned how to just blank it all off. Now I have a trick I can do. It doesn't show up on camera as well, I freely admit this. But essentially I just turn my face off. I'll look someone in the eyes and I just kind of go. And I'm gone. Now my wife has requested that I never ever do that to her in person again, because it scares her in a very deep way. Because it makes me look like someone who doesn't have emotions. Because the light kind of goes out of my eyes. And you really don't know what I'm going to do. And frankly, there were times in my life when I was in that state of mind when I didn't know what I was going to do. But I've been getting better. My cognitive behavior therapy has been going very well. And as my anxiety levels go down, where I used to be here, now I'm here, I've gained some space. And that space has allowed me to expand my understanding of compassion and love. And I noticed recently that my love for my wife had grown. So it's a positive thing. So I tell my wife this. And she mentions to me that she was kind of saddened by the fact that when I was anxious, that the implication being that I loved her less. And I explained that that wasn't true, but as I began to think about it, it suddenly occurred to me that my wife thought that my anxiety level went up and down in some kind of cyclical manner. When my anxiety level was always here, and occasionally it would jump up. And in those moments it would jump up, my wife would perceive those moments as that was the time I was feeling anxious. When in actuality, those were the moments I was in full-blown friggin' panic mode. Every alarm going off in my skull. It was DEFCON 4. But my wife was perceiving that as my moments of anxiety, because I was so good at masking that she could not tell. The most intimate relationship I have in my life could not tell that I was anxious every second of every hour I was awake. And that was kind of amazing to me, because to me on the inside, my anxiety was a klaxon that never went away. How everyone couldn't see it just stunned me. That I was this constantly hyper-vigilant hummingbird floating off the ground, because if I dared touch it, the world would end. Nope. She never saw it. Not once. Because my mask was that good. But as my anxiety levels go down, and I start to realize that, maybe I'm starting to understand this is how other people actually live. They don't live in a constant state of hypervigilant super awareness. They're allowed to be scared. And that may sound strange, but in the past, when people tried to spook me, they always failed. Always. People would do things and I wouldn't react, and they're like, wow, you got great nerves. Well, when in their actuality, they were complimenting me on the fact that I was a hyper-vigilant nutbag. And I was hyper-aware because I was always ready for the attack to come. Because guess what? The attacks used to come from nowhere. That made no sense. Because the person doing it was a raging drunk. They don't make sense. And no matter how much you try to figure out how a drunk makes sense, they don't make sense. But you try to make them make sense, but they don't make sense. So you try to make them make sense, they don't make sense. And you're on this hamster wheel and it just never, ever stops. It's horrible. But the hamster wheel has gotten a whole lot slower. And that space I've now got, where I used to be here and now I'm here, it's one of the reasons I've become what people here on YouTube have labeled me as a social justice warrior. As I've been able to acquire the concepts of empathy and sympathy and compassion and love. And how I can feel a deeper sense of connection to the people in my life who are important to me. And I'm not perfect. Never have been, never will be. Perfection is the enemy of the good. It's something that none of us should even bother trying to pursue. We need to accept who we are, mistakes and all. But it's kind of nice not being as anxious. And yesterday at work, oh, I should say this morning when I filmed this, somebody spooked me to get back to the being scared part. I was looking at my watch, looking down like this, checking my watch like this, and someone said hi to me. It completely caught me off guard because I was looking at my watch and trying to figure something out at the same time. And I jumped. I don't ever jump. But I did. Why? Because I'd relaxed. Because I'd allow myself not to be hypervigilant. And it was kind of pleasant, in a strange way. I got scared. Just for a second. A little skip in my heart. That little skip in my heart, wow, that's a whole lot better than the rabbit punches that I would experience almost every single second, where I was always so aware. Always so terrified something was going to happen next. Come out of nowhere. And here's the thing. Of all the predictions I tried to make in my life, the very thing, every scenario I could conceive of to make sure I was always aware of everything, my prediction rate was 0. I never predicted anything. Because all of these behaviors came out of a situation that couldn't be predicted. Because again, I was raised by a drunk, and they are predictable. But you see, when you put a child to a situation that is that chaotic and that unpredictable, and they can't figure it out, their instinct is to blame themselves. Well, obviously, I can't figure this out. It's got to be me. And that's what they believe. And they build that into the very DNA of their personality. And part of the therapy I'm in, cognitive behavior therapy, is to finally break that down and realize that it had nothing to do with me. Not one friggin' thing. I was just a kid who should have had the ability to experience life as a kid, and I couldn't. So now, at 50, well, I'll be 50 in 2 weeks, I'm trying to figure out how you don't mask. I'm trying to figure, how do you publicly emote? How do you do that? This is something every healthy person figured out when they were 3. But I didn't. So now I'm 47 years late to the party, and I gotta figure out how to do it. Well, at least it shouldn't be boring. But I want everybody else out there who's ever suffered from anxiety to know that we don't have to live up here. We can live down here. Maybe we can live down here someday, where it'll be quiet. Here. Or we'll have the freedom to be scared. It's okay. Or we have the freedom to get caught off guard, and it's all right. Better to be caught off guard 1,000 times than to spend every second of every minute of every hour that you're awake preparing for something that's never, ever going to happen. Wasting your life obsessed with it. Better to be caught off guard 1,000 times a day. To be pleasantly surprised, to feel alive. To not just survive from day to day, but to cherish the moments we experience even if they're unpleasant, because you're in the now. You're not wasting your time predicting the future that's never going to come, that can't come, because you can't predict the future. So, join me. If you're anxious, go get yourself a copy of the Feeling Good Handbook. Get yourself a number of a good cognitive behavior therapist, and if you don't find the right one, go find another one. If you don't find another one, go find another one, till you finally find one that clicks. It took me 4 tries before I found one that finally worked for me. I even got a full-fledged doctor. He's got a little mortar board. It's got 8 sides. But you can do this. You can be relaxed. And you can enjoy the pleasant experience of being scared.